Welcome to Topic 6, Rhombi. A rhombus is a special parallelogram. Therefore, it also has those 5 properties of parallelograms. And all parallelograms, we know that opposite sides are parallel. That's actually the definition of a parallelogram. The word parallel is right in the word. So when we make the sides parallel, 4 new interesting things happen. Opposite sides become congruent. Opposite angles also become congruent. The diagonals are going to bisect each other, and one set of opposite sides are both parallel and congruent. So let's go ahead and look at the new rhombi and what the definition is. If we look at the definition of a rhombus, we know that it is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. So in geometry, we mark congruent sides with little hash marks. Now let's go ahead and label our figure. AB is 48 centimeters. We know that from B to C is 4y, from C to D is 12x, and from A to D is 8z. Well, since all of them are the same, they all equal 48. So I could say 12x equals 48 and solve by dividing both sides by 12 and get x equals 4. I could also say that 4y is equal to 48, divide both sides by 4, and y equals 12. Finally, 8z equals 48, divide both sides by 8, and z equals 6. But now that we've made those opposite sides, or all the sides congruent, let's see what new properties we get out of it. I happen to get 2 new properties, both also about diagonals. First, the diagonals bisect the angles. That means that each angle is cut into 2 congruent pieces. Now, opposite angles are congruent. That's why I can mark these with the same congruent arcs. Here I'm going to do 2, and they're also congruent. My other property, the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular. Symbol for perpendicular is that upside down T. And what does that mean? When the diagonals intersect each other, they intersect at right angles. So they're all equal to 90 degrees. This also tells me a little bit about their slopes. Their slopes are opposite reciprocals of each other. So let's go ahead and use these new properties to go ahead and fill in some of these angles. Now I know this looks a little daunting. There are 12 angles I have to figure out here. Well, the coolest part is, one of my favorite properties are, the diagonals are perpendicular. That means that angle 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all 90 degrees. So I can just go ahead and write 90 degrees for all of these. So I'm all ready. Almost done. So let's keep going. It told me over here that angle 1 was 25. I can mark that in my picture. Now if you remember, those diagonals are bisecting the angles, which means if angle 1 is 25, angle 2 is 25. But wait, a rhombus is just a special parallelogram. In parallelogram, my opposite angles are congruent. So if 2 is 25, 5 is 25, and 6 is 25. So I can go ahead and fill that in up here. as well. Now, how can I get 3, 4, 7, and 8? Best part about those being all broken up into diagonals like that, I have this beautiful shape sitting right here that we all love, the right triangle. So when I look at my right triangle, what do I know about triangles? They add up to 180 degrees. So I can make an equation out of that. Angle 10 is 90. Angle 6 is 25. I don't know what angle 7 is. And together, they equal 180. I can combine my like terms. Subtract 115 on both sides. And what do I get? Measure of angle 7 is 65. Now if 7 is 65, because these angles are bisected, 8 also has to be 65. My opposite angles are congruent, so 3 and 4 are also 65. Now I have 4 more angles sitting here. Let's see what I'm looking at. CDA. If I go from C to D to A, I'm talking about this big angle here, which happens to be 25 plus 25, or 50. So if this one's 50, the angle B also has to be 50. 25 plus 25 is 50, but opposite angles are congruent. I'm looking for B in the middle because that's my vertex. From A to B to C is also 50. So let's see what I have left. I probably have these other 2 angles, but let's go ahead and mark them so you can see what we're talking about. So if I look, and I'm looking for angle A right now, so I'm looking for A to be in the middle, DAB. 65 plus 65 is 130. Now if I look at angle C, notice I didn't mark 3 and 4. The last one I have left, I know if this is 50, angle C and this, these are consecutive angles, so they add up to 180. So if this is 50, this one over here has to be 130. So I could use all the properties I have to label all of these angles.